Whether we refer to the subject as global warming or climate change, it's a good idea to know what it is we're talking about. Yet, true to Voltaire's form, we indulge in a great deal of talking nonsense about it. Let me say a few things about what it is not. It's not the end of weather. In February of 2015, Senator James Inhofe of Oklahoma brought a snowball onto the floor of the U.S. Senate. He talked about how cold it was outside, called the temperature unseasonable, and cavalierly tossed the snowball to the Senate president with the words, "Catch this." It was his attempt to ridicule those who call global warming real. He succeeded in bringing down ridicule on himself. That's because implicit in Senator Inhofe's idea is the notion that we can discount global warming because he found some cold weather, in winter no less. Of course, the idea is silly, but it's surprising how many people think that global warming must spell the end of cold everywhere all the time. Just because climate changes doesn't mean we won't still have weather. We will of all kinds, hot, cold, wet, dry, windy, calm. The days will continue to bring a never-ending variety of temperatures, from bitter cold to oppressive heat, because nothing will stop them fluctuating from day to day. But if you track temperature closely, you'll find that the hots are hotter and more frequent, the colds not quite so cold nor quite so common. It's not about the fluctuations, it's about the trend. One of the most common misconceptions is that if global warming is really happening, each year must be hotter than the one before. Temperature, like other weather variables, fluctuates, always has, always will. Global warming doesn't change that, although it may change the essential nature of the fluctuations. We'll still have colder days and hotter days, colder and hotter months, even colder and hotter years. But the average, what we expect to happen over long periods of time, is changing persistently. What really counts is the trend. It's not a little change. Some make hay of the fact that the average temperature change of the whole globe caused by mankind so far has only been about 1 degree Celsius. That's 1.8 degrees Fahrenheit. How can that matter, they ask, when temperature may change by 30 degrees or more within a single day? If you raise the temperature of the room you're sitting in by a mere 1 degree Celsius, you might not even notice. Well, it's no surprise if a single day is 1 degree hotter. But if temperature is persistently just a little bit hotter, on average, the extra heat adds up day in and day out, and the effect can be profound. Tens of thousands of years ago, global average temperature was only about 5 degrees colder. To many, that hardly seems enough to bring about a cataclysm. But Earth was in the grip of a great glaciation, with miles-thick sheets of ice covering what are now the locations of great cities. So much of the world's water was frozen that the sea stood 400 feet lower than it does today. We're witnessing big changes already, from only 1 degree of warming. Bayfield, Wisconsin is a small town on the shore of Lake Superior, best known for its beautiful natural landscape and outdoor activities, including ice fishing. Every year, the lake freezes over, and locals have kept track of how long it stayed that way for over a century. Back in the 1800s, it was typically ice-covered for about 115 days. But now, it's typically ice-covered for only 56 days. That much difference, more than 8 weeks, so today's typical lake ice season is less than half what it used to be, isn't little by anybody's definition. Many other large changes, as in you can't miss it, have taken place. Due to 1 degree Celsius, we've warmed the planet so far. The consensus of climate scientists is that if we go twice as far, up to 2 degrees Celsius, the cost in lives lost, refugees, crop failures, drought, flood, sea level rise, and more will be far greater than we want to face. No one knows how bad it will get beyond that, 3 degrees Celsius or even more, and nobody in his right mind wants to find out. It's not the same everywhere. Many believe that the global warming will be uniform, that every place on Earth will warm at the same rate. But the differences between regions have caused them to warm at different amounts. Here's how much different regions of the world have warmed by comparing the 2005 through 2015 average to the 1951 through 1980 average, according to NASA. Those oceans have huge thermal inertia, so it takes more heat to warm them than it does the land. Since the northern hemisphere has so much more land than the southern, most of the world's land is in the northern half of the globe, it has warmed faster than the southern hemisphere. Both hemispheres have warmed substantially, but their warming looks small when we compare it to the Arctic, which is heating up about 3.5 times as fast as the globe as a whole. It's not the same at all times. We've already emphasized that temperature is always fluctuating, as heat moves from land to air to sea. Even when averaged over an entire year, fluctuations persist. There are year-to-year fluctuations which can make one year cooler than the previous, even in a warming world. But it's also important to realize that the trend hasn't been the same at all times either. The early 20th century saw a period of warming, which was followed by several decades of none. Since about 1970, however, the trend has been steadily upward. The overall pattern is found not only in the temperature of Earth's surface, where we live, but in the depths of the ocean as well. The way we're going now, burning fossil fuel in a business-as-usual way, it's likely that the warming rate will get even faster this century. It does not cause all extreme weather, but it causes more. Lately, whenever extreme weather disaster brings disaster someplace, two reactions are common. Some will talk about how this may be directly related to climate change. Others will retort that extreme weather has been happening always, and you can't prove this particular event was caused by anything unnatural. It's true you can't prove any single extreme event was caused by global warming. It's also true you can't prove any single home run in a baseball game was caused by steroid use. Major leaguers have been hitting home runs as long as we've been playing baseball. But when steroid use became endemic, the number of home runs went up by a lot, enough that we could tell steroid use might not have caused any one particular home run, but it was causing more than we got without. Climate change has been likened to weather on steroids. We can't blame it for that particular heat wave, but we can definitely blame it for the increase. And like steroids, it doesn't just cause extreme events to be more common, it makes them more extreme. It did not recently pause. Even when the trend is steadily upward, fluctuations can make it seem otherwise, especially over short time spans. That's the nature of fluctuations. By going up and down, they can mask a trend in any given direction. One of the most persistent talking points of those who deny the reality of global warming is that temperature increase recently showed a pause or hiatus. Such claims usually start with the year 1998, because that was when the fluctuation was exceptionally high, so much so that it took years for the upward trend to overtake it. A favorite trick is to show a graph of global temperature like this. It shows the period of the so-called pause, but not what came before. Including context would cast doubt on the pause claim, and it might even reveal that short periods of time, less than about 2 or 3 decades, aren't enough to reveal the genuine climate trend. They're dominated by weather fluctuations. It makes plain the lack of support for the pause idea. Not only does what came before show this, what has happened after 2013 makes the idea look rather silly. 2014 was a new record hottest year. 2015 broke the record again, and 2016 is destined to break the record yet again. A three-peat of record hot years has made those who talk of the pause shift to other strategies, including casting doubt on the data itself, or pointing to different data as though it were better, when in fact it's not. When someone shows a graph which shows less than 2 or 3 decades, a brief time with lots of fluctuation, failing to show what came before, ask yourself why they're not telling you the whole story. There's a lot to global warming, climate change, but at least now you have a better idea of what it is not.